Good evening. It's evening for me. This would be the second block of time that I want to talk about that I've designated for myself to talk about the books that I've been reading lately. Okay, I'm going from May, June, July, August. I did January to April. Now I'm doing May to August. And then the last period of time that I'll be talking about books will be from September to December. September, October, November. Yeah, okay. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Kiara. I like books and I like talking about books. That's pretty much it. Well, that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna get into it, So, first book I read starting in this second period of reading is Summer in the City by Alex Astor. And I have complex feelings about this book, and anybody who has watched my Lightlark summary videos would be aware that I'm not the biggest fan of Alex Astor's writing, at least as has been presented to me in the Lightlark series. But Summer in the City was interesting because it confirmed for me that I don't think that Alex Astor's area of expertise is fantasy, and I think she should stick to not doing fantasy. I mean, okay, that might be a tad harsh. I've tried my best to not be mean. There's a part of me that just feels bad. I think sometimes maybe I can be a bit too nice, just in general. But because of my personal aspirations, I just have wanted to be less, still critical, but not overtly I would say bashing a book, because criticism of a bad book is not necessarily bashing. It depends on what you say and how you say it. But yeah, I am starting to kind of run out of cares to give. I don't think that self-censorship is necessarily the best thing. There's actually this topic that I kind of want to make a video about, where it seems like people have this idea that you just can't rate a book badly at all. Like, if you didn't like a book, you should just not talk about it, and then only rate books well that you liked. And if you're gonna rate anything less than 5 stars, just don't talk about it, don't rate it. And that is so ridiculous. All of that is to say that Alex Astor, I was not impressed with the Lightlark series. If you showed me that series, I would be doubtful about the writer's abilities. If you showed me Summer in the City first, if I had no ideas about Alex Astor at all in her writing, I would say this writer has promise. So yeah, it was a surprise to me. I just, obviously, as I've said, I was not the biggest fan of Lightlark. I heard about Summer in the City. I wouldn't say it's so different because it is still a romance. Lightlark is a romance pretty much before fantasy, but so I mean, it's not completely different, but it is a contemporary romance set in a real location. It is set in New York City. This story is not super fantastical, and it's just normal people in a city on planet Earth, relatively different from Lightlark. That I was curious, and my curiosity will always win out when it comes to books. If you don't like a book or didn't gel with an author, why did you read another one of their books? Curiosity. There were times where I was actually entertained. Was I doing my hair at the time? I think I was. I listen to audiobooks a lot of the time when I'm braiding my hair. So yeah, I read it while doing my hair, and I was entertained in some parts. But later, after reading it and having some time to actually think about it, I rated it a 3-star on Fable. Sometimes you have to let something sink in, and there are just a few things that do not, it's not just they don't work, but there are elements of it that are ridiculous. And the main character does give pick-me energy in a way that is just very, very glaring. It's so too much. But let me just read the synopsis. Well, do I need to read the synopsis? I think maybe a little bit, just to remind myself. Lightlark is categorized as young adult. This book, though, is adult. It is a contemporary adult romance. There is spicy scenes that I honestly forgot about. I've read Ice Planet Barbarians, right? So there's scenes from that I remember because it's just so like, I do forget what happened. I know something happened, but I forget exactly what they did. So basically, the main character, her name is Elle, and she is a 27-year-old screenwriter. I can't remember if she's from New York or not, but she lives in California now as a screenwriter. She is an anonymous screenwriter. Her screenplays are very successful. She's a successful screenwriter, but she prefers to remain anonymous. The book opens with her being in like this club. She runs into this guy who's kind of cocky, arrogant. They make out in like a stairwell, and he kind of offers like, how much money would it take just for you to like come home with me or like just like spend a night with me? And she's like, you can't buy me, what the heck? And then she leaves. Never sees this man again until she is like house sitting for her sister, who is pregnant and off with her very rich husband on a baby moon, I'm pretty sure. So she's house sitting in this very expensive like penthouse apartment while house sitting her across neighbor, and it's only the two of them on this floor, is the man that she made out with many years ago? I don't even know, but a few years ago, or maybe a year ago. And he is a tech bro and started a startup that he is preparing to sell for like billions of dollars. So that's the premise. Is it fake dating? I think they fake date for whatever reason. I don't remember. Oh, I think they fake date because something about dating her would help with this deal, which now that I'm talking about it, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. I like barely remember why that would even make sense. Fake dating has to make sense. Like there's so many things that I've read where it's like people are fake dating and I'm like, why though? Okay, so let me see if I wrote any notes about it. Okay, so literally my first line is, she's not like other girls. So oh my God, I wish I could go back and get some examples. Let me read some of the reviews. Oh, the main male character, his name is Parker Warren. So I said the protagonist is Elle. Main male character is Parker. I do appreciate that this is not dual POV. I've read, so some people love it and I love that for them. Certain things about reading are preferences. I disagree sometimes that things are subjective, like a good book. Unfortunately, sometimes a book is objectively bad. If a book could not ever be objectively bad, then we wouldn't like literally have people who study literature and stuff, So I do believe that there are objectively bad books. I think taste is subjective. So like if the style of a book, like how it's written, stream of consciousness, a structured story, POV, so like first person, third person, dual POV, one POV from one person, one character, that's subjective in my personal opinion. I like that for me that this is not dual POV because dual POV, I'm actually listening to a book right now that is dual POV and I like it. I'm actually surprisingly enjoying it, but I just like when you get the perspective of the other partner in a story, the love interest, whatever, I just feel like it takes me out. Like I want the main character who's in this relationship to not be quite sure like what the other person is thinking, feeling. That creates more tension for me. If we like in one chapter, the character, the protagonist, in this instance, for example, hypothetical scenario, they're like, I don't know if this person likes me. Like, I wonder how they feel about me. And then the next chapter, the love interest is like, I think this person is so hot. I want to bed her right now. I don't know. I don't love that. So I like that this is one single POV. Okay, so I don't have like specific examples from this story, but I did write, girl acts like an alien. I've never been to a club either, but you know how the public sphere works. Yeah. So like I mentioned, the book opens with her in a club. This is how she meets the main male character, the love interest. And it's like, yeah, I've never been to a club. I'm introverted. I've not done a lot of things. I've not had a lot of certain experiences. I am at home and I read. The way the character acts, though, it's like if I went to a club, I would just be more uncomfortable than anything, depending. I mean, if it's a really fun, cool club, then I feel like I can see myself having a good time. But she just is so strange. Like, she acts like, I don't know, like you cannot have done something before, not have had a certain experience, and not act like this is your first day on earth. I was once told that I need to get off my high horse, and this character is for sure on a high horse because she just, I don't know, I don't think she thinks that she's better than other people. I actually think that she thinks that she is quite a humble person. She's not. The main male character is huge, taking from the Allie Hazelwood School of Gigantic Main Male Characters. The female character, the protagonist, Elle, she is a writer. She doesn't do much else other than write. She watches movies. So, she's not a very active person, but she has a best friend, and her best friend makes a comment that she has, despite not being very active, she has a Pilates body. I love that we have to reassure that even though, she doesn't exercise or anything, that she still has a tight fit body. I don't know, just let her have like some. I've read a few books now where the protagonist is not thin, like she's described as a normal person, like other people who have a little bit of pudge and a little bit of tummy. And I think that's great. I just don't understand why we had to like reassure the audience that don't worry, she has abs. So I did write that for me personally, the chemistry was not there. I did not mind Parker as a main male character because he was really just, there was nothing offensive about him, but there wasn't anything outstanding either. He really seemed to like her mostly. I'm just going off of the notes I have. He seemed to like her mostly because he's a really rich man and she is not. She's not a rich man. She's not a man. She's not rich, but he seems to really like her because she doesn't care about money. In the beginning when they first met each other, they didn't know each other, but they were making out in the stairwell. He offered to give her money to shoot his shot with her to hook up. And she said no. And that really left an impression on him. Going forward, this has left such an impact on him that he really just seems very interested in her. And it seems solely because she doesn't care that much that he has money. But this thing with money will come up over and over and over and over again. Ultimately, the female character, the protagonist, she does get called out on it, which I'm glad, because I was like, are we going to acknowledge that? Because she keeps, she criticizes the love interest for his use of money and how much money he has, to the point where I was like, you seem also obsessed with money. Like, she thinks that everybody's obsessed with money. You're the opposite direction where it's a little bit much. Like, I'm all for eat the rich, billionaires, we don't need them, why do they exist? But also, like, I want enough money where I don't feel like I feel comfortable. Like, I don't want to be broke. Being broke sucks too. I do think though, even though that the female main character is called out on eventually her obsession with money in kind of the inverse way of like, it's rather than greed, it's a hatred of money. But I do feel like it's just kind of, it's a rom-com. It's supposed to be a light summer romance novel with some comedy in it, but it does kind of definitely is written by somebody who has not experienced like, I don't know, struggle. Alex Astor grew up in a well-off family. Some of the ways that the protagonist kind of views money and just like the discussion about money gives off like, money doesn't buy happiness, when no, money does not buy happiness. Like, you can be worth billions and still be very miserable of a person. But I can assure you that if I had enough money to like pay my bills and like not, have a broke couch, because I do have a broken couch and can't afford a new one. If I could just go and like be able to get a new couch, I can assure you where I'm comfortable, by the way, because it's very uncomfortable. I can assure you that I would be happy. So even though the chemistry wasn't quite there for me, I do think the pacing of the relationship is fine. I think sometimes in these kind of more newer contemporary romance rom-com novels, that sometimes the relationships seem to develop really quickly, which it seemed the pacing was okay to me. Like I mentioned, the writing was better. There were some aspects of the writing where I was like, this is definitely Alex Astor. There's a phrase in the book, I did actually make a note of it. So the two main characters are having sexy times, fingering, but it's still sex. And so Ella's like, he's just where I want him, which is a very similar, that's a very Light Lark phrase. So the protagonist and the love interest, as they start to get to know each other, the love interest, Parker, he becomes so very whipped for Elle. There was this review that was so funny on Fable. Okay. So it says, she wanted fries, so he bought her a McDonald's. She wanted a new desk, so he bought the IKEA. She wanted a drink, so he bought her a Vineyard. She wanted a new book, so he bought her Barnes & Noble. She wanted to go to the movies, so he bought AMC. She wanted to go outside for a walk, so he bought all the air outside. F you, she said, I can't be bought. That is the book. My Demon Hunter by Aurora Asher. Did I listen to it from the library? I think I did. I just go to my Libby app and I just look for whatever audiobook might be available. Basically what I do is I always have an audiobook. I try to have an audiobook, at least one going. I typically have an ebook that I read at night in my bed, and then I have one like physical copy that I just read like throughout the day or try to. This does not improve how much I read, by the way. When I'm reading something, I always want to be reading something else. So I have to have like multiple books that I'm reading because I want to read so much. You know what I mean? Like there's so many books I want to read. And if I focus on one, it could take me forever to get to other books. My Demon Hunter is actually, I think, the sequel in a series. So something happened prior to this book. The main character in this, the demon, his name is Mishetsumetai. Okay, his nickname is Mist in the book. I guess something happened in the first book where he ended up on Earth. He is from hell and like hell. In a lot of these like demon books, sometimes hell is not really hell. He's from hell that is ruled by Lucifer. And so this demon, I don't know if he's real or not. Like I don't know if he's a real demon. There are some actual like demons, like actual named like from the demon book in this. Like there's Paimon. And so in the first book, Mist, I guess he was tasked with finding these demons that escaped from hell. He has ended up on Earth. Now that he's on Earth, he's actually a nice guy and he wants to blend in, I guess. Here's the synopsis. So the hunter shall become the hunted, and the timid shall become the fierce. Enslaved to an evil demon queen for millennia, let me see if I can actually try to. Mist has only ever served one purpose. He is the hunter, the one who drags the guilty back to hell, but finally tasting freedom on Earth has changed him, and for the first time, Mist questions his duty. The human female, who smiles at him with no idea what a monster he is, draws him in, and he'll do anything to possess her. Lily Donovan thought the most dangerous thing about running to the corner store at night would be the aisles of junk food. She didn't bargain on encountering chaos in the form of a man with unusual tattoos and beguiling amber eyes stalking her through the ice cream section. Since the death of her parents, Lily has tried to forget what she is, but denial is not an option when she's confronted with everything she's been running from. Neither Mist nor Lily can ignore the burning magnetism between them, but Mist's reprieve from hell was always temporary, and the punishment for disobedience will be worse than death. Yet he can't relinquish the woman who's sent calls to him like nothing he's hunted before. Give it up for audiobook readers, because like narrators, it's hard to read out loud. Like it's so hard. Like it's not easy. And to do it for chapters and chapters and chapters, congratulations. My mouth gets so dry. I don't know how they do that. So this book was fine. It was entertaining. It's a standard monster romance, which I love. I enjoy monster romances. I think I enjoy them more than regular romance. Not regular romances, but like mafia romance, billionaires, whatever, BDSM. I don't care about any of that. I like monster romances. I do. It was entertaining. The dialogue, just because a book does not ultimately seem like that serious, I do still think that the writing has to be good, decent. Sometimes the dialogue is a little awkward. It reminds me of Sarah J. Maas a little bit. Just the bros are very bro-y in this. It's kind of like Crescent City a little bit. I was thrown off by a phrase in the book that said the two characters, Lily and Mist, were going all the way, because at that point I thought we went all the way. So Mist, he has a tail, and before going all the way, he used the tail on Lily. That wasn't going all the way. Okay. I really need people to let go of the idea that penis and vagina means we went all the way and that was real sex. It's no. I will give the author praises for this being the second book in the series and me not realizing that I was reading the second book in the series and not being completely confused. I thought she did a really good job of keeping a reader up to speed. I think it's probably one of those things where like each book is a standalone, but I still was able to get context of what was going on with some of the side characters who, if I had read the first books, I would have been familiar with their story, but not knowing their story, I still got an idea of what was going on. So I thought that was really good, providing context. This book is really fast-paced in a way that, so we get to the sex scenes. I do feel like I need more than sex, like to get to the love part. And a lot of these books, it's like the sex comes before like real, deep, honest conversations. And I don't know, that's not a replacement for me personally. But, you know, I don't know, whatever. Another plus is the female main character, the protagonist. She's like the dual protagonist, really. But Lily, she's curvy, and I like that. And the Mist, he likes her soft bits, and that's cute. And so there's not much to say about it. It's literally just a monster romance. So if you want to read about a witch, a human who's a witch having sex with a demon, then go ahead and give it a go. It's Halloween spooky season. It's the best time to read it, to read that. What? This is another book that I found just browsing Libby, the Libby app, for an audiobook. I might have had this book saved a while ago and not even remember that I wanted to read it. But so there's this book, it's called The Wrong Lady Meets The Wrong Lady Meets Lord Right. This is a Regency era romantic comedy. So a woman, her name is, what's her name? Okay, a woman, her name is Arabella Grant, and she has a cousin who is of nobility. Her name is Lady Isabelle. I almost said Isabella. Lady Isabelle. Arabella's aunt, she's called the Wicked Aunt in the synopsis, she dies. Arabella's an orphan. So she was living with her aunt, her wicked aunt, and her cousin. Lady Isabelle, Arabella's cousin, has a weaker disposition. She gets sick really easily. She's not good at certain things. Arabella is, I don't know if she's particularly talented at things, but she's just like kind of charismatic, but she is charismatic and charming and full and voluptuous. She got big titties, okay? So this wicked aunt, Arabella's aunt, Lady Isabelle's mother, I think it's kind of like a Cinderella situation, sort of, where she's mad at Arabella for being kind of what she wishes her daughter was. Arabella has a background that I guess is not the most noble. Like her father, one of her parents is, I think it was a mom, was not of the right social standing. So Arabella comes from a background where she's just not perceived to be at the right station, I guess. So she's kind of treated lesser than her cousin by her aunt. Since she dies, they're both free. Lady Isabelle doesn't have to deal with her mother wanting her to be something that she's not, and then Arabella doesn't have to deal with her aunt being a bitch to her, basically. Even though the aunt has died, their great aunt comes to take them in, and they're in London, I think. And this is where, so the great aunt confuses them initially. I think she has poor eyesight, so she confuses them at first. Lady Isabelle and Arabella, they don't look anything alike, but because she confuses them in the beginning, they essentially switch places. Lady Isabelle can read and stay at home, all she would like, and Arabella can go out and be a part of the social scene, and people fall in love with her, think she's amazing, great, charming. She meets a man who is somebody who has an arranged marriage with Lady Isabelle. So because Arabella is posing as Lady Isabelle, he has the impression that they're going to get married. He's very attracted to Arabella. So, it's like, he's like, oh my God, this is great. We're in this arrangement, and thank God she's like gorgeous and funny and charming. Arabella is like, oh my God, I'm not Lady Isabelle. And then meanwhile, so Lady Isabelle spends most of the book like in the bed because she, again, has a weaker constitution, is being seen by a doctor who is very handsome, who she starts to fall for, and he believes that she is Arabella. So there's this mix-up. It is a very tame Regency romance. It is not like Bridgerton. There's no spicy scenes at all. I would say it's like the language and everything is of course not like a Jane Austen novel, like as far as like what they're saying, and like the vocabulary and everything. It's more tailored for a modern audience, but I feel like it has the vibes of Jane Austen. There are elements though where it's like it's not completely historically accurate. There's just certain things that like the characters do that don't make sense sometimes, like per like customs at the time. And like the doctor, for example, his character also seems to change a little bit, because he seems very like, I thought he would oppose something that comes up later, but he's like, sure. He's like all gung-ho for it, and that seems a little out of character for that character. But the Lord Wright, so his name is Lord Brooke, and I liked him. I liked the end. I thought it was really, really cute. I thought it was a good ending, and it made me happy. It made me swoon a little bit. That's just all I'm looking for. You know what I mean? For a romance, I just want to swoon. If a romance doesn't make me swoon, then what was the point? Speaking of swoon, there is a book that I actually have. It's right here. It's called When the Tides Held the Moon. I actually listened to this book on audiobook. It's another thing I got from Libby. But I bought the book because it was just, first off, the cover is just like, look at the cover. But the author is also an artist, and she drew a lot of the, like, there's artwork in the book that she drew herself, and I just think it's so cool. So you can kind of see it. This is like gay Shape of Water, basically. We got a sea creature who's a man, a merman, and we have a human man, and the two fall in love. Benny Caldero. I took Spanish. Benny knows an orphaned Boricua blacksmith in 1910's New York City can't call himself an artist, but the ironwork tank he creates for famed Coney Island playground Luna Park astounds the eccentric sideshow proprietor who commissioned it. He invites Benny to join the show's eclectic cast and share in their shocking secret. The tank will cage their newest exhibit, a live merman stolen from the salty banks of the East River. More than a mythic marvel, Benny soon comes to know the merman, Rio, as a kindred spirit, wise and more compassionate than any human he's ever met. Despite their different worlds, what begins as a friendship of necessity deepens to love, leading Benny's heart into uncharted waters where he can no longer ignore the agonizing truth of Rio's captivity and his own. Releasing Rio could mean losing his found family, his new home, and his soulmate forever. Yet Benny's courageous choice may just reveal a love strong enough to free them. Gay Shape of Water. Like, for real, like I watched Shape of Water because, again, monster romance. I think there's something wrong with me. There's not actually. I was actually thinking about doing a video on monster romance, and I'm cramping. Oh my God, Jesus. I thought about doing a video on monster romance. That'd be fun. It'd be fun to do. But so yeah, I did watch Shape of Water. It is similar. There's certain points, like plot points, that are similar, but it's different where it's set. So it's set in the early 20th century. We have the element of, it's a queer romance. The protagonist, I think it transitions between, in this case, I'm okay with the dual POV for the most part, because we do get the perspective. So Rio is the merman. He's the one that gets held in captivity. And so getting his perspective of being in captivity, I think is fine, really. I think that it's fine that, he has his own perspective. Sometimes it doesn't really contribute much, I'll be completely honest. But it's like I could, the story could do with it or without it, but it's not a complete hindrance. Benny, the pretty much mostly like the main protagonist, is a Puerto Rican man in 1910s New York. At this point I'm pretty sure Puerto Rico was a U.S. territory at this point. There might be information about it in the book. There's an author's note. It says it's about Puerto Rico, colonialism, and hybridity. So in the tradition of mermaid tales and tales, haha, funny joke. That didn't mean to sound sarcastic. Sorry, that's just my voice. So Benny's story is about hybridity when having a foot in multiple cultural worlds. Racial, ethnic, geographic, or otherwise, presents challenges to identifying with any of them. Hybridity has specific historical relevance to colonialism, as Benny's otherness is direct... Oh my God, I can't read today. I'm sorry. It's nighttime and my nose is stuffy. It's warm as fuck up in here. Hybridity has specific historical relevance. Why is it so loud? Jesus, I'm trying to read here. Hybridity has specific historical relevance to colonialism, as Benny's otherness is a direct outcome of his homeland, Puerto Rico's occupation, his geographic displacement, and his assimilation into New York City's labor force, all of which convolute Benny's ability to truly define or defend himself in his new reality. Further complicating his trajectory to self-actualization is his queerness, a quality seemingly at odds with both the culture he has left behind and the one he must now survive in. So Benny's character, inspired by the true accounts of teenage Afro-Puerto Ricans who made the steamship journey to Red Hook as stowaways, is culturally representative of Puerto Rico's condition as the turn of the century, when the island nation was in limbo. The 1898 Paris Treaty marked the end of the Spanish-American War and assigned formalized control of Puerto Rico, Cuba, Guam, and the Philippines to the United States. These agreements eventually gave Cuba autonomy in 1902, but detached Puerto Rico politically from its sister island, leaving its identity caught in the liminality between colony, commonwealth, and sovereign nation. As the island changed hands from Spanish to American rule, immediate economic changes set the stage for Benny's migration. The American dollar supplanted the Spanish peso, and the island's agricultural profile whittled from coffee, tobacco, sugarcane, and cattle farming to predominantly sugarcane exports, advancing a pre-existing job famine and bankrupting Puerto Rican farmers as American mainlanders bought out the island. Yeah, so basically that's just kind of explaining a little bit of, you can read more if you buy the book. You should buy the book. But, and also just do research, like read other books. But, yeah, at this time, there was American occupation of Puerto Rico. So there's really a lot going on, like as the author herself wrote. There's just like a lot of otherness. Benny is an other in so many ways because of his ethnicity, race, culture, especially at this time in New York, where there would have been there's a lot of immigration anyway, and people from other cultures in that part of the country. There would have been Italian, Polish, German, Puerto Rican, obviously, because of the culture at the time. Really still to this day, people expect people to assimilate and shed their cultural identity. Yeah, so people in 1910s New York who were coming from other countries, other places, would have felt the need to assimilate, but then they were also having to learn about other people's cultures, and there were language barriers and things like that. It would have been a hectic time for a lot of people, especially somebody who, like Benny's character, had so many factors contributing to him feeling like an outcast. Him being an outcast and finding these sideshow performers who are also outcasts for various reasons. It's the perfect place to ultimately, when you find a group of outcasts to ultimately not be an outcast because everybody's weird and different and it's cool. And the end, I mean, I wouldn't say that like it's just absolutely the perfect novel, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was a beautiful story, and the ending I thought was very beautiful. I don't often, or really at all, I don't listen to audiobooks and then buy the book as like a shelf trophy, but I mean the book is just so pretty. It's just so pretty, the colors and everything. I had to get it. And then again, when I heard that the author drew the art, her own art for it, I wanted to see the art myself. So the next book would be Take a Hint, Dani Brown. This would have been at the time where, so this was getting into June. And so I was trying to read more queer, like novels featuring queer people, written by queer people. Some were accidental queer choices I didn't realize, but this one was done on purpose. So Take a Hint, Dani Brown. Dani Brown is the female main character and she's bisexual. Not a situation where she's bisexual and thank God she found a man. It's that she was in a relationship with a woman, happy with the woman to a point. I mean, she has issues like with relationships and commitment, the female main character. But she was with a woman and they were relatively fine until Dani kind of messed it up, and then she happens to fall for a man. But so Take a Hint, Dani Brown, it is a book and a series about the Brown sisters. So the first one was Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This one is Take a Hint, Dani Brown, and then the last one is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. So they're all sisters. Each book focuses on one of the sisters getting in a relationship. But for this one, so Danica Brown, she is and these are all set in the UK. So they're all British. So I had to imagine them all talking with an accent. And that's very interesting for me. So she's like this alt black woman. And she's like in her 30s. So she's a woman. She's a woman. She's curvy, got big titties, and she has a shaved head that she dyes several different colors. She's a witch. Like, she's just, she's that girl. She's great. Sounds like a great person. Also sounds kind of annoying at times. Like, she does things that are not great, in my personal opinion. Just like how she interacts with people and navigates her life. But the main male character is, the way he is described, he sounds very attractive. His name is Zafir Ansari. Danica is a teacher. Zafir is a former rugby player turned security guard of a school. When the book opens up, it is already established that he has a crush on Dani. This is the scenario where, this is one of those things where this is fake dating, and the fake dating does not make that much sense to me, but it's there for the sake of the plot. So there's like a false fire alarm that goes off. So they're doing a fire drill and everybody leaves the building. Dani gets stuck in an elevator. And, at this point, like, Zafir has been the bodyguard at the school that Dani works at. They have interacted several times. He finds her attractive. I can't remember how she feels about him at this point. I don't know if it's been established that she also finds him attractive, but they're both conventionally attractive people. So yeah, there's like something there a little bit. Like that's how it starts. Like, we don't work up to that where they like get to know each other, meaning like they don't meet. Like, there's not a meet cute. They already know each other. But so there's this fire drill that happens. Dani gets stuck in an elevator. It's a fake fire drill. There's not a fire. Zafir is like, oh my God, where's Dani? Like, they're all outside and he doesn't see her and he's like, I need to get her. But whatever. I mean, like, he's concerned about her. That's fine. That's great. He goes and looks for her, finds that she's stuck in the elevator. I don't know why, can't remember, but he picks her up and walks her with her in his arms outside. He carries her out and it's caught on video, him carrying her out of the building, and it goes viral. And so Zafir, he has this organization that is like supposed to help young boys, I think. So basically Zafir tries to ride his fame as suggested by his niece to bring attention to his organization, which is in need of donors, like desperately in need of donors. So the organization is meant to combat toxic masculinity, which is great. Love that. The only thing is I don't really get why they have to fake date for this. So this fake dating scenario, it really requires suspension of disbelief. But that was really difficult, at least for me. So I kept trying to just be like, this is fake. I just kept having this nagging feeling in the back of my head being like, this makes no sense. Like I just kept being like, try to be in it, to be immersed in the story, and I was like, this just makes no sense. So that was a gripe. Another gripe I would have would be with Dani as a character. I kind of already mentioned that she kind of has some personality traits that I don't love, but at times it does really come across as her being selfish, which you would probably agree. She has her epiphany like most characters have in these books, but it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I don't love it. I don't love reading it. A highlight though, like a good thing about this book. So there's a quote I really like from this book, and I wrote down the whole thing. So the quote, I wrote down the whole thing. It's not very long. It's about anxiety. Zafir suffers from anxiety. So it's Dani talking to him. I know you put a lot of stock in the fact that you're better now, that you handle things, that you cope, but coping takes a lot out of a person too. And handling things doesn't mean never struggling or slipping up. And I just really like that quote. I think anybody with anxiety probably needs to hear the fact that just because you have a bad day with anxiety, like it doesn't mean all of your progress is like eradicated. I'm so upset. I just realized that I've been talking for so long and my mic just like stopped recording. So thankfully I got through most of the things I wanted to talk about, but I'll just go back through the books that I was talking about. I'm just going to make it quick. So, I talked about This Ends in Embers. I'm like really gonna have to make this short because I cannot believe I did that. But so I read the first book and the sequel. I read So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole. And I was interested in knowing what happened for the sequel. So I decided to read This Ends in Embers. This concludes the story of sisters Farron and Alara Vincent, who find themselves on opposing sides of a war. So Farron is essentially a double agent, but these two sisters are basically working to oppose a like dragon god who is possessing a person who is possessing his descendant. It is, I think personally, the first book was not my favorite, but I do think that this is an improvement on the first book. I do think it's better than the first book. I find it more engaging. I was in need of a summary because I was lost sometimes. I forgot certain characters and who they were. As in the first book, there's a lot of talking back and forth between Farron and Alara specifically, with not a lot of action. But I still, I think it was an improvement. I think it was more engaging. And there was a quote that I really, really liked a lot that I had to go and listen to several times so I could record it accurately, because I don't have the audiobook anymore. I got it from the library. So it's not something that I could highlight and go back to. But so Alara, she's trying to figure out how they'll defeat Aya, the like dragon god, with a professor who is a history professor. So a lot of what happens in the book is basically like it comes from a nursery rhyme. Like Aya, this god, is kind of essentially, I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but he is following steps of like what is happening in these nursery rhymes. So Alara asked for another one that might help. The professor says that there is not a nursery rhyme that really reflects what Aya is doing now. He says, so this is just a story we all know by heart, but seem incapable of learning from. Smithers sighed. A young and charismatic leader, hunger for power, and the annexation of lands expedited by the sheer volume of people who believe this is simply not their problem. Alara asks, and how does it end? The professor says, historically, some people, good people, speak out. They rally and they organize. They fight back with or without the support of the hand-wringing leaders. In the light of day or the dead of night, they hold the line and the tyrant falls, sometimes as brutally as they rose to begin with. They stop speaking, and Alara internally, she is like, oh, this is not a story. There's no end. It's an endless cycle. So basically, a tyrant rises, people rise up, the tyrant falls, there's another tyrant, there's more wars, and on it goes. So Alara asks, how many people have to die before a tyrant falls? And Professor Smithers says even one is far too many. So I thought that was a really poignant quote. So yeah, it was really relevant. It seems to be too relevant too often. It wasn't a perfect book, but you know, that was an element that I really appreciated. Ready to Score is the next book that I would have finished after this ends in Embers. It is a sports romance, and I'm really not very much like a big sports person, but I was browsing. I wanted to read a queer romance for Pride. So this is about Jade Dunn. She's a badass assistant football coach trying to smash through small town football politics and snag her dream job. But just as she's strategizing her way to the top, Francesca Lim, who is a spicy, sharp-witted art teacher with a Texas football past, shows up to challenge everything. So, of course, you know, not being a football person, not being a sports person, period, I do know that Texas football is a very big deal. College football, high school football, probably pee-wee football, like it's a very big deal. So somebody's having a party. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's really loud music. So Jade is a regular teacher, but she helps coach the football team. The head coach, he is planning on retiring. Jade sees herself taking over that spot with Francesca or Franny Lim, who, by the way, seems to be a new teacher, but I don't know how new. I wasn't really clear on that detail. She's also interested in football and can challenge, really the only one that can challenge Jade's potential to take head coach because of her Texas football background. So with this book, I'm just going to read my notes. This is a little insta-lusty. Jade as a character is not my favorite. She's very like hostile towards Franny, who's a very chill character. And like, it's kind of, you know, it's too much sometimes. You know, she feels threatened by Franny, but you know, the hostility is not necessary a lot of the times, especially because Franny is not giving any of that. The sex scenes are hot, not mad at it, but we do get confessions of love and stuff really quickly, and I had no idea how we had gotten there. And I guess I wrote the end goes on too long. I don't really remember exactly, but I'm probably correct. Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. So if you've read, I have all of the books, like I have the whole entire series. And so obviously, you know, this is the final book in the series. If you've read it, then hi, these are my opinions and thoughts. If you've not, then you can skip this. But so, because this is the third book, I'm not going to summarize the first two. Yeah, I'm just going to talk about this. And it's obviously a follow-up to book 2 where Emily and Wendell are now engaged. I started reading this book May 24th and I had to stop for a bit. I loaned it from the library, but I knew that I wanted it, so I ended up buying the book and then continued to read it. So the synopsis is: Emily Wilde must study the inner workings of a fairy realm. As its queen, engaged to Wendell, former academic rival, Emily is caught up in fae court politics and has to unravel the mystery of their stories to save Wendell and the realm. So it's really interesting because it seems like for some reason, I don't know if the fairies are compelled to follow stories, or if it's just something a part of their quirky, like strange nature, because they're strange. They're a different species, so they behave differently to humans. They like follow the tales of their people kind of almost to a T. And so the issues that they're having in this book, Emily and Wendell, Emily has to create a compendium of lost tales, has to go and find old stories about fairies that might help them navigate court politics and the threat of the former queen, who is Wendell's stepmother. So there's this channel that I watch on YouTube called Textual Tension. I've not watched their videos yet on the Emily Wilde series, So I love the Emily Wilde series, and I'm not the person that I can't handle like critique of something I love, but I did want to hold off on watching their videos until I was able to read everything and finish the series. So I'll probably do that now. But I didn't watch, but I did see their video on this, and I believe they basically said that this was the weakest one in the series. I would have to agree. It doesn't have quite like the first book. I love the first book. That is my favorite in the series. I can say that confidently now that I've finished it and had some time away. The element that I think that worked best with the first book is that there's a village of people, and there's a village of people in the second book, but the village in the first one, like Emily gets really involved with them, and it's nice to see her interact with them as somebody who's pretty closed off generally. And then, by the time we get into the second, definitely the third, Emily's completely entrenched in the fairy world. And the fairies, just by nature, are hard to relate to. We have other fairies and other humans, actually, that are likable, but they're different species. They're different. It's hard to kind of really connect with them the way that I connected with some of the like human characters in the first book, but it still doesn't, I didn't dislike it though. Like, it's good writing. The characters are really likable. They feel like individuals, which again is, I've said before, but it's not a big ask to have characters be individual people, but a lot of authors seem to struggle with that. But with this, Heather Fawcett does a good job with creating like individual people with their own personalities, thoughts, and feelings. I love that I have all three of the books because they're just really nice books. Like, they're really nice books. I made it a point to get them all hardcover, and it's one of my faves. Yeah, I like it. I enjoyed it. It was a good ride. This is not the first series like I finished, but this is the first series I finished in a while. Isabelle, Nagg, and the Pot of Basil, which is a cozy fantasy. But let me read you the synopsis. So, Isabelle Nagg's husband, Mr. Nagg, comes home with a spell book that Isabelle uses to do a little magic, thus beginning Isabelle Nagg and the Pot of Basil, a novel of sentient, depressed farm animals, a talking pot of basil, wizards, and an entrepreneurial villain running a goblin fruit Ponzi scheme. There's also necrophilia and murder, which is not quite something that I would have expected when I downloaded this book. It was available on Libby, and I thought that would be like a cute little thing about a woman practicing like magic, and it was so much more than that. It is so funny and weird. It's a really weird book. It's not like so bizarre that it's just like incomprehensible. It's it's whimsical. I'm looking at a review. It says, "I'm not really sure how I feel about this book. I enjoyed the whimsy and the bits of humor. It ended up being a bit darker than I had expected, probably because of the murder. What I find really funny," so in the synopsis I said, there's a sentient depressed farm animals. So Isabelle Nagg, like, she gets this magic book. She uses it, brings a pot of basil to life, and has a donkey animals are conscious, but the donkey develops a self-awareness of a human. Upon doing that, like, immediately develops anxiety, which, like, very relatable. I have the timestamp. It was 49 minutes and 53 seconds into the audiobook. So it says, he, the donkey, wanted to go back to sleep. Not real sleep, but the mind sleep, where all he cared about was mooching and eating. It had been fun at first, and I put ... I think I was like taking out some of the quote. It had been fun at first, ... sentience, he had quickly discovered, was extremely overrated. It had taken him all of 5 minutes to develop mild anxiety. So yeah, it's a strange book. The protagonist is middle-aged, which I like. She has a husband who she does not love. He is a deadbeat. Because of this, she is very lonely. She has a pot of basil. Okay, so this book is based on an actual story, which if you know the story, you would not be surprised, but I don't know it, and I was surprised. So there's this pot of basil that Isabella, like, talks to, considers a friend. It is not alive. It's just a plant. but she brings it to life. It has a fondness for her. And I don't know if it's because I've been reading a lot more or what it is, but I kind of like accidentally do a really good job at predicting things in stories, whether it's a movie, TV show, a book. I just will casually in my head as I'm like watching, listening, reading, I'll be like, I wonder if, or it'd be funny if I end up being right a lot of the time. So I started this and I was like, it'd be interesting if the pot of basil were to like become human and Isabella falls in love with it. And then I was like, no, that would be too far-fetched. It was not far-fetched. So yeah, that's pretty much about all I can say before I get into like spoiler territory. Mr. Nagg, I hated him. He deserved what he got. Every single bad thing that ever would have happened to him in that book, he deserved it. He's terrible. Isabella was likable. I felt bad for her. I read some of the reviews before reading, and some people really did not like the bullying, I guess. I don't remember that. I mean, there's like a council that they're not the nicest to Isabella, but then again, like her husband is a bully. He's the biggest bully. So maybe that's what they mean, that made them upset. I wouldn't say it's completely cozy. I mean, I think if you're looking for like a feel good, it depends on your definition. Like, it depends on what you find cozy. I just think it's weird. It's kind of, not quite. But, if you think of like Over the Garden Wall, where it's whimsical, a little dark, it's not super. Even though I love Over the Garden Wall, and it is very comforting, very autumnal, there's like a certain unease to it, I would say is like this, but more ridiculous and sillier. I feel like I should do a plot summary on like Halloween or something, because it's just that ridiculous and funny. But okay, so the next book would be The Village Library Demon Hunting Society. It is a murder mystery paranormal. So why I chose the book, again, available on Libby. So the summary is librarian Sherry Pinkwhistle keeps finding bodies and solving murders, but she's concerned by just how many killers she's had to track down in her quaint village. When someone close to Sherry ends up dead and her cat is possessed by an ancient demon, she might, instead of becoming a investigator for murder, she might need to become an exorcist. This is set in Schenectady. This is a small town in New York State, and there shouldn't be as many murders as there are. I can't remember why it happens, but at some point Sherry's like, this is ridiculous, this is too many murders, it's a demon. And like the conclusion coming to that it's a demon, I don't know if it's because she has a Catholic background, I don't know, but I don't know how like she went to demon like almost immediately. But so she reaches out to the local father, and I think he doesn't really quite believe it at first, but then ultimately shows him the evidence. And so what's happening is a demon, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just because it's a demon and loves chaos, but it specifically uses Sherry and has created this bubble in this town. That they're also, this was another thing where like the detail wasn't quite there, because I guess the town is stuck in like a different time period, pre-phones, computers. There might have been hints, but I didn't pick up on it. And I mean, I like to think of myself as somebody who like pays attention to the things that I'm reading and the detail, and I didn't pick up on it. So this demon has set this town in a sort of contemporary time period, but without phones, internet, and creates instances where people are killed. Well, the demon doesn't necessarily make people kill people, but like influences, which, okay, but influences people. And then Sherry is then tasked to solve the murders. This is like the demon's favorite pastime, just to watch these murders being solved. That's pretty much it. It was a little disappointing of a book. The Village Library Demon Hunting Society. So the Village Library Demon Hunting Society, when you hear that, I know when I heard that, I was expecting people in tweed and glasses with their books, little books in hand, going out to hunt some demons, and that did not happen. There is no society. They talk a little bit, but there's nobody going out and like hunting demons. That's what I thought this would be. So that was disappointing. Like, I was expecting like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I thought it was going to be fictional. Like, I thought it was going to be a completely fictional town. Like, you know, for example, Buffy is set in California, but it's set in a fake town. If this would have been set in New York, but a fake town in New York, and this is a place where people are aware of demons and fight demons or hunt demons, like, I don't know, I feel like that'd have been more interesting personally. It was okay. Like, it was just an okay book. It was entertaining for the time while I read it. I don't ultimately understand what the point really would have been. The positive is that I did like that there was an older protagonist. So the protagonist, Sherry, is like, has to be in her 60s, I'm assuming. I can't really quite remember, but she is an older woman. I liked having an older woman as the protagonist and reading from her perspective and her vulnerability about feelings regarding aging. The Phoenix Keeper. So I picked this book. So it is a cozy fantasy / contemporary fantasy. I picked this book because the cover is gorgeous. The cover is beautiful, and I read some reviews that made this seem like this book would change my life. That's the impression I got. Maybe I misread something. But so this book, Ayla has spent her entire life dreaming of saving phoenixes. She pulled countless all-nighters at uni just to sneak a toe in the door of the breathtakingly competitive field of conservation, stumbling through failed romance and disastrous class presentations, thanks to a social anxiety while also surviving a ferocious class rivalry with the unbearably beautiful, insufferably hotshot Luciana. Somehow she actually did it, landed her dream job as head Phoenix Keeper at the world-renowned zoo that inspired her as a child, tasked with rescuing the critically endangered Silmalo phoenix. There are just 2,000 or 3,000 impossible problems. She can't act sensibly around the charming dragon keeper, Connor. Her plans to revive the Phoenix program are more precarious than ever after a poacher attack at a neighboring zoo. Her best chance at success means teaming up with the star of the zoo, the universally adored Griffin Keeper, the hotshot showmaster of the most popular exhibit. ... Yes, of course, it's Luciana. So this book, I mean, there's not really any spice. I mean, some people are saying there's some spice, but there's like kissing, and I don't know what the genre. I mean, it's fantasy, cozy fantasy, contemporary fantasy. I don't think this would be considered YA. Really, anybody could read it. It is queer, sort of. That doesn't come until like much later. The protagonist is bisexual. She has a crush on the Dragon Keeper. He is a straight man who is a stock person. I think that's all I need to tell you. He's very, like, to the point where it hits you over the head with the fact that he is not a good match and Ayla will not end up with him. So it's very obvious. I honestly did not know that this was a queer book or like this was a queer romance, but this was again an instance where I was reading and I was like, I wonder if, because Ayla just had such a strong reaction to Luciana and constantly commenting on how she looked, even if it was like a negative, that I was like, I think that she likes her. And she did. Like, she does. She did. I guess this was a debut novel. There was a lot that needed to be cut out from this. I like that most of the novel is spent at the zoo. I really like the descriptions. I loved, actually, the animals, but there's just so much spent with humans. This isn't really quite what I expected, like as far as like how my brain thought the story was gonna go. The level of quality of like the writing and the plot, I can't really, like, it's hard to explain what I expected. It was more like a vibe that's hard to explain, but it's just this didn't match the expectation. The protagonist was not fun to read. There is a character who might be transgender, which I didn't pick up on that. I think that is cool, and it's not like focused on to the point where it's like, it's just a thing that you're aware of, I guess, that you're supposed to be aware of. I wasn't, but that you're aware of, but she's there. She is important to the plot and is really honestly a great character, a good friend. Ayla doesn't deserve her. That's for sure. This is very obviously a world that is accepting of people who are queer. And, this is a fake world, so they don't have those hang-ups that we have. I liked the conversation around having zoos and kind of, I don't know. I'm not like really well versed in zoos and conservation and everything. I know a lot of people have issues with zoos and animals being held in captivity. This question gets brought up in this book where, unfortunately, making people see an animal can help with the preservation of it or conservation of it. I don't know if I use the right word. I think I use the right word, but unfortunately, a person can see a video. I mean, I can watch a video of a polar bear clinging to ice, a skinny polar bear clinging to ice, and be absolutely gut-wrenched. But, some people need to see a polar bear and have formed that connection in order to care. So that's what zoos can help with. The topic of shows and having animals perform comes up and is discussed kind of in the same vein of like, it's to create popularity for the animal, to force people to kind of care about the animals. It is brought up to discuss in the book, but ultimately it's determined that it is a good thing. I think it's an interesting conversation to have. I think if I think about like SeaWorld, for example, and I'm born and raised in Florida, I grew up going to SeaWorld as like an 8-year-old or younger than that. I wasn't aware of how awful the treatment of the orcas was. Growing up and watching the orcas be amazing and beautiful, I liked them and cared about them, but I was not, what is their status right now? It's not evaluated. Okay. The overall conservation status of orcas is not evaluated, but the southern resident killer whale population is listed as endangered. But either way, people saw orcas performing and everything. So by that logic, then we don't really necessarily need to have them perform to protect them. I think there's a benefit, especially with conservation and keeping certain animals, animal species alive. I think sometimes having animals in captivity is not necessarily the worst thing. I just think that, having proper conditions for them obviously is what's important. Yeah, so like on that topic, nobody really, like, for the several years and really decades that orcas were performing at SeaWorld, nobody really seemed to think too much about their care and keeping until that documentary came out about them, which I never watched. I think part of it might have been a little sensationalized, but it's like the attempt at the conversation, like it comes up, it's there. I appreciate it, and it did make me think about, or really just, I think about it quite often, about the role of zoos in conservation. Not so often that I think about it every day. Well, I would say probably like occasionally, like every once in a while, that I do think about it. I don't really know all about it, but yeah, like I appreciate the book making me think about that. Grim Reaper's Guide to Catching a Killer. I don't think I wrote really anything about it. This one is a murder mystery also. This also has an older protagonist, which I liked. It's cool to read from. It's cool and good to read from different perspectives. Synopsis is: murder is not her department. It's not like it used to be. Modern day Grim Reapers wear business casual, not black cloaks, and they don't carry scythes. They work for Scythe, SCYTHE, secure collection, yielding, and transportation of human essences, where the Department of Natural Causes is the least exciting gig. And that's how Kathy Valence likes it. Boring and predictable. She has enough stress in her personal life. She's mid-divorce, pregnant, and terrified. She doesn't have what it takes to be a good mom. Then she goes to pick up a new client and finds his soul is missing. When she finally tracks down Connor Ortiz, he angrily insists he was murdered, and he refuses to move on until Kathy finds out why and by whom. Kathy has only 45 days to solve the mystery before the boy's soul is doomed to roam the earth as a ghost forever. To do that, she'll have to call on the help of her retired mentor, her almost ex-husband, and inconveniently, Connor himself. This is the wild case of her career, and one wrong move could cost Kathy her job, not to mention her life. I was surprised by it, firstly, because I thought it was going to be more fantasy. Like, so it's a Grim Reaper, right, that collects souls, and it's not a job that the public is super aware of. So I thought this would be like supernatural. Somehow it was not. It is not supernatural. That's the one thing that was a little like, I didn't quite get it. So the Grim Reapers, they collect souls after people pass. They help them move on. They don't really know what happens after, but they help them move on. And it's like a normal office. These people are not supernatural. They are able to be invisible. They have like these name tags they put on and they become invisible. I guess it's like some technology somehow. It's not ever explained by science, magic, really anything. So I don't know. But aside from that aspect, I thought it was funny. There were some funny moments. The characters are likable. Again, the protagonist, I am a girl's girl. I really am. But some of these protagonists, I don't like. It's not even like I don't like them, but I like them in some moments, but then they do things and I'm like, what are you doing? So this protagonist, like it said, she's mid-divorce from a man who was so sweet. He is a really, really good person. She is a little bit unfair to him at times. And I know she has a stressful job, etc., but he's very sweet and doesn't deserve that. Yeah, but she's basically like, so this review says Kathy bugged the F out of me. She was divorcing her husband because she didn't want to communicate and thought she didn't deserve it. There was no try with her. She really settled for the life she had instead of working to be better. You married a man and are having a child with said man when you can't fully open up to him, but you never gave him the chance to prove you wrong and be there. Let him show you he can be there, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's kind of like, that's pretty much what it is. Like, she's divorcing him because she seems to not be able to, like, just talk. Yeah, the mystery of this, again, it's a murder mystery. It's pretty easy to figure out who's the murderer. Connor, the kid he's a teenage boy that's killed, his soul kind of lingers for a bit while the mystery of his murder is solved. He was likable, a believable teenage boy who kind of acts out sometimes, kind of rude sometimes because he's angry. But he's very likable, lovable. At the end, he does pass on. In the end, I had the impression that possibly Connor was like, well, okay, never mind. Let me not, that's a spoiler. But I have a belief, and I looked it up and I couldn't find anything about it, but I'm gonna believe that. I'm gonna believe what I believe regarding the ending and assume that everything works out in the end. Yep, that's what I'm gonna believe. I actually was looking after the Village Library Demon Hunting Society. Wrong, not a demon hunting society. But after that, I wanted to look for some murder mysteries, and I found this. I was like, let's give it a try. It sounds interesting. It was entertaining. It was fun for a bit. But I am interested in reading Agatha Christie, and yeah, I need to read like a legit murder mystery. I think I gotta get on that maybe for this fall. The last thing that I can talk about, which is really easy to talk about, and then I'll be done finally. I'm very tired. So I read the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is kind of like a weird thing to throw in here. But so Harvard, they offer free courses that you can like audit. So you can pay to get a certificate. I'm not paying, but I like to go through their courses and I do learn things, or I have learned some things, or maybe had my brain refresh. I do feel like now that I've not been in school it's only been like a year, but I've been in school for like majority of my life, and it's weird to not be constantly learning purposefully, and I kind of don't like it. I feel like I'm already becoming less smart, so I decided to do some of the courses. The thing that I've learned is if I don't have the incentive of grades or, take this class and pass it, or you don't get to graduate, then I don't do anything. So I've entered a lot of courses. I've not finished them. Right now I'm doing modern masterpieces, modern literature masterpieces or something. And I don't know, I think I have to stop taking courses where I have to read stuff. I am already reading like 3 books right now. It's hard to like incorporate that. So I don't know. But the course I'm taking right now, like I think it ends October 5th. Because like basically what happens is you lose access to like the free access to these courses by a certain date. So I took a course about ancient masterpieces in literature, and the Epic of Gilgamesh is of course like the first really time human beings recorded a story. And I had never read it. I know of it, but I never read it, and I was like, okay, let me read it for once. Yeah, it was actually interesting, although I did start to get bored just because it's not a story. It's a story, but it's not like sitting down and reading a novel. The actual epic is all on a bunch of tablets, clay tablets, and a lot of the tablets like are hard to read just by nature of like how it looks. So some of the translations are not super clear. There's some parts that are like missing, so they have to kind of leave out a lot of chunks of things. So that kind of can be difficult too. Everything prior to being recorded is prehistory, because human beings, you know, if we don't have something to like evidence written down, then it's hard to make conclusions about things. The Epic of Gilgamesh and just so many things that the Mesopotamians left behind, it gives us an ability to really get an idea of people who lived so very long ago. And it's just so like cool to be able to read something on like a Kindle from somebody who carved something into clay and would have never guessed that a girl in her room bored at work would be reading their stuff on a computer thing that I don't even know how I would describe a tablet to somebody who lives in ancient Mesopotamia. They would just think I'm probably a god. It wouldn't really be the time frame where they would accuse me of witchcraft. Oh my goodness, my dog is in my room. Why are you in here? You need to go potty? Is that why? You coming to tell me you need to go potty? You need to go pee pee? Well, I think my dog is trying to tell me that she needs to go outside, so that actually will wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah, I have no idea what I will be doing next. It's always a mystery. It's always a mystery to me. Bye!